Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Today's episode, I'm going to talk all about the shift in search behavior and how users are actually searching and how discovery channels are changing. So, traditional search is based on a keyword cluster, and Google or whatever search engine is actually going to serve up to best match that intent. And typically, what we saw historically, there were high volume searches for the head query. And what the head query is, so there's the head and the tail. So the head is a query that is more frequent, and it typically is the higher volume and more concise. So think about, plumber or just like these very basic, concise searches. Whereas we actually are seeing a shift, and there's a study from Bright Edge looking at since the start of May 2024. Um, the queries containing 8 words or more actually increased sevenfold since the inception of the AIOs on Google. So just those AI answers on Google SERPs. So what all these studies are actually showing is that traditional search is no longer just about basic head queries. Instead, users are getting really specific and typing in these longer tail. And the reason for that is because users are using these AI systems. So they're getting accustomed to the question answer dynamic. And there's a lot of, other factors at play too, of course, in how users are searching. So just as technology is getting more advanced, users are becoming more accustomed to this type of specificity. So what a tail query might look like is, best plumber for sewer or backup or something like that. So something that's, a longer tail. So in AI, the tail, when there were studies looking at, the head versus the tail and the confidence rate as well. So for the head queries in AI studies, they found the confidence quite high because there is all the training data and the memory and um, the co-occurrence between these more frequent searches. So another example would be, think of Nike or something like that that is known for shoes. So there is that strong co-occurrence layer to it too. So there's so many different levels to how the confidence is calculated. And then you know, how the LLMs actually work, it's based on probability. So you are influencing the probability of your brand being cited for a certain query if there is strong co-occurrence and strong, confidence. So what this means for local businesses, um, the tail query. So understanding what are the attributes that make you unique and what is the positioning angle, all of these things that you want to actually capitalize on and showcase. And that is where the brands can win because, okay, the tail queries in the AI studies showed, as I mentioned before, they're less frequent. So there's not a strong confidence level in the understanding for the entity relationship. So if you are able to actually hone in on this area, this concept of the tail, okay, not only are you going to strengthen the co-occurrence layer? So, mention it and be consistent, and repeatability. And this is actually mentioned in recent studies too, where it's showing, what actually generates the citation, and it's looking at, accessibility and things like that. And one of the more prominent layers are the co-occurrence, and also looking at, so in co-occurrence, we want everything internally. So that means, the copy, the more prominent text, the headings, the metadata, the anchor text, all of these areas. So not only on site, but also off site. So your social branding, social platforms, and then also other authoritative sources that are mentioning you, and strengthening that entity relationship between you and that long tail that we're talking about. So that is going to help with the co-occurrence layer and the repeatability layer. But also, not only are you capitalizing on that, you will be able to capitalize on the query fan out concept. So when an LLM is actually getting a query from a user, oftentimes it will perform a RAG search. So if there's not, enough context or memory or confidence for this long tail query, it can't rely solely on the pre-trained data. So it's actually going to layer in that RAG model, which is the retrieval augmented generation. And that's just fancy talk for the LLM is actually going to perform a search on these other trusted sources. So as long as you know which sources to get, your positioning on. So whether it's like Reddit or Trust Advisor, um, Google Business Profile, and making sure all of these different sources are saying the same consistent messaging is going to help you with the query fan out as well. Because the query fan out, let me break this down. So you have the head term, and it actually will break out the subtopics. So if it is just a head term, plumber, best plumber in Dallas or whatever, it might break out, emergency plumbers and these subtopics related to the head. So that's that other area that you can actually capitalize on as well. So making sure that you are getting specific and break out, specific examples, problems, scenarios that you actually help resolve, and what was the outcome. All of these will actually add all this confidence and positioning to strengthen, the topical authority and the depth, reinforcing the co-occurrence and the query fan out for the tail, as well as, the head if it is performing a rag. So I know it's kind of a lot. So let's just get clear. So, where search is headed now in discovery channels, it's all about specificity. So, let's get clear on all platforms with your messaging. Everything needs to be consistent and repeated, co occurring, plumber in Dallas with fast emergency response. So, you want to provide the specific examples for your positioning to help strengthen that credibility of your brand and really capitalize on where everything's headed. Um, if you have questions or any additional insights that you want to add, please feel free to leave something in the comments. I'm happy to dive into any questions, or if you just need help, QAing, what does my strategy look like right now? I'm an expert in SEO and AEO, and I'm helping brands get, their brand messaging down. So I'm working with my customers on ironing out the positioning angle that we want to take. And I'm actually leveraging, as I mentioned in other videos, I'm leveraging the GSC data to really get the insight. and how users are finding them and what Google actually is liking. And then also in GA4, I'm able to see what was chat actually, or these other LLMs, what landing page were they taking you to? And if it's like something specific, like another example I pulled from was this roofer that, provided this program and like for funding and everything like that. And they are struggling with all of these other issues, but we capitalize on this one area where we saw, okay, the LLMs somehow found this like hidden blog, which is good. I mean, that's a good sign. Like with all the problems that they have, at least they're, getting crawled. And it actually was serving these pages. So running with that angle and messaging is helping to boost their visibility and maximize performance on these other discovery channels. Um, so thank you for listening. I appreciate any likes, and if you like the content, please subscribe.